Um, Thank you everyone for joining in today. Thank you for the people watching us. My name is Rizwan Khan uh, with the CxO Global Forum, which brings together and thought leaders globally to and the change makers, and they're doing a lot in Pakistan to make awareness in a lot of things. And we're going to be talking about fintech. A quick background about myself. I basically work as a investment M&A advisor, mostly in technologies, very involved in fintech as well, mainly outside of Pakistan. Um, but before I continue much longer, I think it would be great if all of you can introduce yourself, because I think that will be much more, and about your companies as well, for about a minute. So maybe if we can start with Noreen, you first.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Great to be here, especially amidst some really exciting stuff happening, with the RAS program, the RAS platform coming in. So I am a co-founder at Tez Financial Services, which is a fully digital neobank, technically based out of Pakistan, and legally we're an NBFC. And the vision really is to provide a full stack of financial services, ranging from credit, savings, insurance, and ultimate investments, all through a smartphone app. So we've been operating since 2018, giving out nano loans to consumers and now venturing into merchant lending. We've launched our insurance vertical with partnership, with some of the leading insurance companies in Pakistan, and soon to launch our savings vertical, comprising some really exciting products. So that's a bit about me and Tez.
Thank you so much, Noreen. We'll definitely get back to you with some questions. Um, Mr. Kareem, can we have your introduction and a bit about your company for a minute, please?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Kareem Jindani. I'm CEO of Paces Labs. We are a 4-year-old company. We're not a typical B2C fintech. We do a lot of infrastructure related work in terms of enabling banks and fintechs in digital financial services. Uh, we also have a lot of work which is related to the instant payment systems, integration of payment systems with the banking systems. So, and a lot of work which we do also for public sector organizations. So, in last few years, our organization has digitized one of the largest savings institution in Pakistan, which is National Savings. Uh, so, our role is mostly in enabling the infrastructure for DFS.
Thank you very much, Jindani Saab. Mr. Janjua, can we please have an introduction? Um,
My name is Ali Janjua, the CEO of Paybro. Paybro is a financial facilitator. We are currently in the aggregator space. We have plans to grow into we're actually doing B2B and then B2C at the moment. But we have plans to expand that to the distribution space as well. We were founded in 2018. I'm not a founder, but I have been running Paybro for the last 15 months.
oh, that's great. Thank you, Ali Janjua Saab. We are so glad to have you here. Mr. Rehan, can we quickly, I think Karandas, a lot of people already know about, but could you also please give us your introduction?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Rehan. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Karandas. For those of you who do not know about Karandas, Karandas is a not-for-profit organization funded by DFID, which is now called FCDO, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Our vision is financially included, economically empowered Pakistanis. And how we try to achieve this vision is by fostering economic growth and creating jobs through financial inclusion of both the unbanked individuals and unserved enterprises. We have a number of projects that we fund and do both in the infrastructure space, private sector space, public sector, as well as in the SME space. So thank you very much for inviting me on this esteemed panel.
Hello. Hello. Guys, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Gee, we
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, Mr. Saad. Thank you so much, Rehan
Just
bhai,
give
for
me a
your
second.
introduction. Can we have an introduction from you, Mr. Saad?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah. So just give me a second. Yeah. Yeah. So, Ji, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saad Niazi. I am one of the founders and chief operating officer of Kinu. Kinu is a financial technology company. We entered into the space via the infrastructure play back in 2013. Uh, we are the only non-banking entities to own a POS acquiring network. Since 2013, we have done multiple things. We also have a license of local e-commerce gateway. We do have Kino Wallet offering that offers wallet solutions for merchants and for customers. We're in the last stages of our licensing as far as EMI licensing is concerned. Our plans ahead are multiple. We do want to create a network based on QR as well, working on our own use cases. We do want to offer better consumer services for consumer wallets. We have multitudes of use cases for merchant wallets as well. So currently, as we enjoy that kind of number one position in the fintech play, but let's see how it goes.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So straight off the bat, my first question to everyone
Yeah.
is the same. So recently, I mean, for the last couple of years, if we look at our neighbors, India, right? We've seen Facebook recently go in with a huge amount of investment, a couple of $1 billion. We've seen SoftBank go in with a lot of money, followed by Berkshire Hathaway. And now these are all names that are well known for smart investments. There have been certain critique about how the investments got in. But my question is Pakistan ready to absorb that kind of capital into its fintech market? And if we are ready, why is it not happening yet? So, I mean, whoever would like to go first, or shall I? Shall we go through a
If you
sequence?
allow, if you
Yes,
allow
please.
me,
Yes, yes,
I'd
yes.
take it
Yes.
first because
Please, please.
we have been probably the oldest one around, and we have gone through a lot of thick and thin. My friend Kareem Bhai will understand the journey because that my day one, fortunately or unfortunately, in Kino started with Kareem Bhai's meeting, and till date we are just going up and down, somehow or the other. So what we have seen is, you see, number one, we have a different set of issues and different set of problems that we face in Pakistan.
Right.
Uh, for example, back in the day when we were talking about building wallets, the concept of
Hmm.
wallets, when we used to see Paytm really flourishing in the early days of Paytm, in Pakistan, the investment mindset and the sponsor who would invest in you, they were looking at a sustainable model, a sustainable growth model, a green line, a green bottom line.
Yeah.
Whereas the entire world was going towards value addition and CLV. When you talk about moduling your company in a way that takes you to in that route, then you face another challenge, and that challenge comes down to international investment not coming in because of country risk.
Right.
Structuring your company from day one in a manner that you position yourself outside of Pakistan. Pakistan happens to be a branch office, or you're an offshoot of 16, 17 markets, one of the 16, 17 markets. So the
Hmm.
money is not coming in, I think, primarily because of the country risk factor, number one. Number two, it's my experience says that I think we are still one step behind the entire world.
Right.
People are focusing on pure fintech play. When you talk
Hmm.
about Kino, you see we probably are the only self-sustaining fintech in the country, and we are not relying heavily. In fact, we are relying heavily on a non-fintech play. That is the
Hmm.
infrastructure play, right? Laying down a POS network, facilitating in it, adding value adds. But the real fintech play probably is away from the realities of Pakistan. It will take some time to build up. I'm not saying it's not we are into this. We are also developing our merchant wallet and consumer wallet.
Yeah.
But it'll take a bit of time, a couple of more seasons probably, a year or two, that is when we would become a bit more attractive for financial investor. But that
Right.
country risk has to be handled by the government to start with. It stays
Mm-hmm.
there. You can't do anything about it. I mean, the kind of valuation that I believe these financials would get outside of
Yeah.
Pakistan, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you simply thrash it by 10 times and she would be getting that offer. I mean, no, Taste Financial getting that kind of offer in Pakistan because of the country risk factors. Repatriation of profit, that is the biggest concern of an international investor. You can't
Yeah.
ensure that there's no government policy, long-term policy. So I think fiscal issues are the biggest hurdle in my view.
Right. Right. I would agree with a lot of things you're saying, definitely. And either we need some structure that brings out an opportunity from these problems, or we need someone to get involved and help this sector facilitate these investments to make it easier. For just as an example, you might remember Paytm basically was able to close a deal with Berkshire Hathaway on a phone call. And it was not a small deal; it was $300 million. So, who anyone else that would like to add to this question and the thing, Mr. Hansab? Yes, please.
Uh, okay, I can add it on this. See, I mean, you're looking at the after effects.
Mhm.
Paytm getting a huge investment, or some other local giants getting huge investment. Those are after effects. They only come after a lot of groundwork has been done.
Yeah.
So, talking about India, since 2009, they heavily worked on the central infrastructure play. Uh,
Mhm.
you know all about the work which UPI has done and PCI has done. And there was a lot of, we all talk about the India stack, where you have got a payment stack, you have got an identity stack. So, all of that
Right.
infrastructure play actually enabled a lot of organizations to come out of their silos and do a lot of you know I mean, you don't see right now fintechs, big fintechs in Pakistan collaborating very heavily with banks. There is always this tussle. So you would see a very big silo of easy pesa or very big silo of jazz cash, but not easy pesa and jazz cash
Yeah.
working with a lot of source of funds with the banks.
Right.
In India, this whole thing was turned upside down because of the central infrastructure, that no matter where my source of funds are, if I want to use a Paytm app, I can link my bank account with that. So all of those things create that network effect, which eventually attracts large investments. uh,
Right.
it has happened to an extent over there that now NPCI is stopping actually these large uh, non-bank players like Google, limiting them actually to not exceed certain percentage of transactions on this national infrastructure.
Mhm.
So they've got an entirely different set of problems now, and they're now thinking about having more infrastructure. Oh, it's a long way there. We are in the right direction. SECP and SBP has started taking uh, positive steps, I would say. Maybe COVID triggered that in last year. Um, but we need a lot of those steps to create what Saad was referring to as ease of doing business, getting the investment in easily, getting the profits repatriated easily.
Right.
All of those things, baby steps which need to be taken before we can see such kind of investments in Pakistan.
Thank you for. I
I'll
truly believe. Yes, Mr.
yeah.
Akhtar. Please,
So I'll
please.
add to what Kareem has said, and I think that's the at least our analysis as well, that the market size is not very big. The growth minus, let's say, last year has been nominal so far.
Yeah.
Last year was something we started to see, but then again, a lot of credit to COVID, to push us into digitization. As an economy, as citizens, as population, we avoid documentation, we avoid formality when it comes to transactions. So there's a huge informal market,
Right.
and I think that's the big challenge. And if you look at India, so they never had this challenge of financial inclusion. Our
Yep.
financial inclusion is about 21%. So 80% of your citizens do not even have an account. How can fintech
Yep.
serve them? And I think
Exactly.
it's a question between scale or value addition. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the fintechs here are going to focus on value addition, and their growth is dependent on the fact that how many people actually end up opening an account.
Yep.
While fintechs who are really focusing on opening an account and the muscle, that they have to have. So we see Jazz Cash and Easy Pesa. I think these are the two kind of branchless banks slash fintechs.
Right.
But then I think we also see that they have kind of run out of steam as well, and there have been phases. So we do have new investment
Mm-hmm.
uh, that Telnor Bank has attracted, and I think
Yep.
that's a great credit. Well, it's not a
Definitely.
small bank or small fintech, and Jazz I think is also preparing for it. So I think it's also about, will investment come into scaling up a
Right.
common use case like opening an account, or will the
Mm-hmm.
investment come into sort of deepening some of the services like what PayPro or Kinu or Tez or even CreditFix is doing, which is more value addition, and facilitating. So I think from that point of view, to sum it up, I think the market has been smaller, the growth has been nominal, but I agree with Kareem that it's all about infrastructure as well, and we have started to see now infrastructure and regulations
Yep.
also coming forward. EMI and SECP has come with a lot of regulations and new licenses. So I think that will help facilitate investors also see risk in a context, because
Right.
it was also about just going into a country where there were no regulatory sort of guidance. Now there is
Mm-hmm.
guidance at least in a lot of areas.
Right. Right. That definitely makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about the slow growth rate and a small bankable population. Now, just moving on from that same point, um, so when a fintech comes into existence, is financial literacy and enabling financial literacy a part of what they're doing to increase or stimulate or catalyze the market growth? Owais Zedi has joined us from Credit Fix. So I will ask this question to him and also ask him to give us a quick introduction.
Hi. Uh,
What's going on?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, Avas, you're not audible actually.
Yeah. Uh, Sorry, Mr. Owais, we can't really hear you.
This is scary. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Can anyone else hear Mr. Owais? Yeah, Mr. Owais,
Only
can you please rejoin? Maybe I think your internet might not be. Okay. Right.
I think that talks about
Noreen,
the
if I
internet
yes,
infrastructure we have in Pakistan.
good example of one of the issues. Yeah. So Noreen, if I ask the same question to you, so when we talk about slow growth rates of the bankable population or the digital financial inclusion, is that something that the fintechs
I'm
are
sorry,
trying to
Rizwan. I
solve as
couldn't
well?
hear most of that. I'm just breaking out. Could you please repeat that question?
Sure, sure, sure. Are you able to hear me now?
Well, now I can. Yes.
Okay, great. So my question was, so as Mr. Rehan was describing that the investment, one of the big issues of not attracting as much investments as other parts of the world is that we have slow growth in the bankable population, and then we have, um, you know, um, small or financial or digital inclusion is not that big. Now, we do have a bigger population in a lot of other parts of the world, not India. So, so while we have all this within this, is the problem financial literacy? And if it is, when you think of Taze Financial or a fintech,
Did I lose Rizwan or?
to
No,
understand
you're
what they can be a part of and what benefit they can gather from it.
I'm so sorry. So what I made out was the point that in other countries, and I lost you.
All right. So, okay, I'll make it very short. Okay. So the question um, is financial literacy part of what fintechs do to stimulate growth for the fintech sector?
Well, I think Rizwan, what everyone just mentioned,
Yep.
Rehan, Kareem, Saad, each one of them made very, very valid points. It's an entire ecosystem where you have
Mm-hmm.
different pillars or different pieces of the puzzle that ultimately
Yeah.
make that landscape for investment.
Mm-hmm.
Financial literacy is definitely a very important aspect for digital adoption or even
Right.
adoption of financial products to begin with, and we can never undermine the significance of financial literacy. But I think we all understand that even the state bank, the regulators have tried even within the NFIs to bring in that element and push for it. But I think some of the major issues, which I think a very very positive step has been the RAS platform now, rests in how we really look into the products that are number one conceived by the financial institutions. So far, till very very recently, and I think 5 years is still very recent for building ecosystems.
Yep.
Um, with
Definitely.
the fintech space coming. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We can.
With the fintechs coming in, I think
We can. Yep.
till very recently, the banks and the conventional financial institutions have been really slow to move in terms of innovation and the kind of products that you need for adoption at scale.
Right.
And you do see now products coming in that literally mimic the way the informal, financial, um, I'd say, avenues operate. You talk about, for example, savings, which most Pakistanis do not do formally, or you even talk about credit, whether it's through retailers, etc. You see these avenues now coming in where banks are now focusing on them, fintechs coming in, to help the SME sector. So I think for the longest time, it's been a lot about the mindset that institutions have come up with, and you see that evolving. But at the
Right.
same time, I think some very other important aspects are also on the regulatory side or the infrastructure side. I'd rather say the compliance side of things, which become impediments rather for financial innovation and financial institutions to grow. Other than the capital
Mm-hmm.
requirements themselves, I think there's still pieces within the infrastructure, including players like NADRA, the credit bureaus. Um,
Yep.
when you talk about data, the telcos, even the banks, that have to come together to build centralized systems. And you talk about plays like
Yeah.
centralized data repositories, centralized KYCs, even with NADRA, digital identity, as you saw the case with UPI in India, Aadhaar, these things are something that need to be worked upon. And this is still very, very early days, very, very nascent. And the good thing is that we're going in the right direction. So I think it's just a matter of time where you will see that herd mentality coming in from
Mm-hmm.
the investors as well, particularly when with
Yep.
countries like Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Philippines attracting most of these investments. That
Yeah.
there's a tipping point that comes, and I think Pakistan is going to be getting to that tipping point very soon.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. And if I were to ask you, how many years do you? Sorry. Yes, Mr. Waits.
I think guys hear me.
We're not able to hear you at all.
No.
If you allow me, I
Okay.
would like to add something.
Yes. Yes. Please. Please. Please.
Just a liner,
Yep.
carrying on with what all the participants have said, and
Mm-hmm.
especially Noreen. You see, what I generally think, when I'm alone pondering about what's next, how lucky we were, or how unlucky we were at certain times. You see, I always look back to what China has done, how they did it. You see, the interventionist approach has worked
Yep.
in China. It
Mm-hmm.
probably would be a failure in the West, but it has worked very well in China. Probably
Right.
Pakistani markets, fintechs, and all, they need certain kind of a catalyst. And
Yep.
after 8 years, and one of the few people who actually introduced fintech in Pakistan. You see,
Yeah.
after 8 years, I believe this is the way to go for Pakistan. The government has to step in. A lot of work has been done by SECP and SBP, but I'm telling you this with complete authority: there has to be one ministry, or under one umbrella, every initiative should be parked. That one authority should be taking those decisions. I was talking to State Bank about a week ago, and I suggested the same thing to them, that you have done what you could. State Bank could simply give you regulations and enabling environment, but there's much more to State Bank, much more other than much more the other entities have to do other than State Bank and SECP. So that interventionist approach, for example, I'll just give you one food for thought. When a tsunami of POS terminals came in Iran,
Yep.
how did that happen? That happened because the populist government, Ahmadinejad, they decided that the oil subsidy that is given to each Irani now will be given via card, and
Right.
cashing out so much money from ATMs was not a possibility. Hence,
Yep.
POS machines spread like wildfire.
Right.
There's a similar thing. If we want to digitize Pakistan and we want to create an environment where everybody has to open an account, that is where Tez Financial Services Credit Fix comes in. So for that, probably
Yep.
we need some certain kind of approach that 50,000 and beyond and above transactions have to be done via digital means. Certain kind
Yep.
of measures that catalyzes or kickstarts the process.
Mhm.
Those are my own thought. That's my
So,
personal
so
point of view.
when you talk about intervention, that's where I would also plug in what Noreen has been mentioning. What do you think of Rast? Is that an intervention, or what? How do you see it for the fintech industry?
Well, you can't. I mean, you have to ask it from the Godfather. That's Kareem Jindani. How can you ask about
Okay,
Rust to
Mr.
anybody
Jindani,
else?
No, I'm
please,
not the
please.
godfather. Sorry. Uh, I've been involved with the implementation, and Rehan also is obviously part of Karandas, which has sponsored this whole
Mhm.
initiative. So
Right.
yes, it's an intervention, and a lot of people ask in early days the questions that why do we need a new payment system? We have already have a
Right.
payment system. We have one link. We have got NIFT, and if you study the global trend in the international markets, uh, you need a different kind of systems to capture or catalyze the different domains of financial services. So we have a cards ACH, which is one link. We have a check clearing ACH, which is NIFT. But for
Yep.
digital payments, we needed a rails which were designed ground up for that. Uh,
Right.
and this is what RAST is, that it is a digital payments uh, instant payment system, which will enable a lot of use cases, hopefully in coming years, and then that will allow all the fintechs and PSPs and EMIs to play their role on an equal footing. So, for example, just to give you an idea, right now we have got two PSPs. One is APPS and another is NIFT, which has been
Yep.
trying to enable payment gateways in Pakistan.
Yep.
Now, what their journey right now is that they have to go to each and every bank and connect to them one by one, and it will take them a lot of time, effort, and energy. And then still, they won't be doing settlements instantly. They will be forced by those banks that it has to be a T plus one settlement. Then the merchant gets the payment on maybe T plus two. So all of that doesn't work. If I am a
Mhm.
small merchant and I'm taking payments with cash and it's
Right.
happening immediately, then
Mhm.
digital has to be better. Digital can't be worse than that. And that is what infrastructure interventions like Rast is going to do. That you can enable instant payments which are regulated under a payment scheme.
Yep.
So we talk about Visa as a payment scheme or Mastercard as a payment scheme. Visa and Mastercard are fantastic, but for a niche, it you can't apply Visa and Mastercard to a grocer or a corner shop.
Yep.
You They may pitch themselves that we can digitize their entire country, but the financial model or the way it works, it doesn't. So yes, interventions are required, and this is a positive intervention, uh, and hopefully it will have positive results.
Thank you. And Mr. Ali, would you like to add something? Do you think, uh, Ross, like how Mr. Kareem was sharing the information about it, and how Mr. Saad said we do need intervention in the market to act as a catalyst? Do you believe, as a stakeholder, that this is the right kind of intervention in the right direction? Hello, Mr. Ali, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. I just realized. No, as Green said, the infrastructure is definitely, I mean, it's very welcome, and I was previously part of Karandas, and I mean, it's finally reached this stage, and I'm very glad to hear. Although I do have to point out, Green mentioned the coming years have new things to happen for the fintechs in a few
Yeah,
years
I
or.
think, Ali Saab, your voice is cutting off quite a lot.
Oh,
We
I'm
were.
sorry. I'm just
Ali, try switching your camera off. It might help.
Can you hear me now? Is it better? All right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
uh, okay.
it's. There's a lot of static going on for some reason, I think.
Okay. So, I'll try to try to, and if you can't hear me, maybe Sadhan or somebody else can pop in. I'll get my internet restarted or something.
All right. Okay.
So I'll add
Please,
to
please.
I think what Saad has said, and so intervention is a double-edged sword by government. There are a lot of people who believe um, that intervention like RAST destroys the business case for private sector.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you analyze the market and if you look at the growth from last quite a few years, and
Yep.
I think somebody needs to compile how much investment everybody has done, not only fintechs but even banks and everybody in digital financial services, um, and the required infrastructure. Internet, for example, is one. 3G, enabling smartphone, etc., etc. So I think we have a addressable market, which within this space, everybody can address, and that's where kudos to all these fintechs who are trailblazers.
Yep.
They basically not only have to create their own solution, create a company, raise funding, acquire customers, they have to hammer their head with the regulator, with so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
So एक होता है ना कि entrepreneur sees an opportunity. I think इसमें तो I don't know how do they see that in darkness an opportunity, and also fight with regulation and so many other things.
Yeah.
I think from that point of view, a lot of credit to some of these trailblazers, and persisting, and not giving up. I don't know how much time does it take for a company, a fintech in other sort of countries where there's more conducive environment to really take off. So 8 years ki bhi baat ho rahi thi, maybe another year or so, the environment should change. I think intervention is required. I think Pakistan has come to a stage, at least on the digital financial services side, where what Saad was also hinting towards and Kareem was endorsing, other institutions like FBR,
Yeah.
like NADRA, like PTA, now they
Mm-hmm.
have to get together. I think Pakistan में digital Pakistan के एक वो चीज चली थी, and there were some people who came. Very unfortunate that we lost sort of the whole momentum. And again, there's
Right.
some people who are now taking it forward from government, but not with that kind of pace and intent where it should be. सो आई थिंक वो जो नारा लगा था पिछले साल के, जी पाकिस्तान का CIO कोई होगा, एंड दैट
जी जी.
पर्सन विल ड्राइव द विजन एंड क्रिएट द विजन एंड integrate different departments from government, etc., etc. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is very much required, because trailblazers हो या जो कुछ भी हो, it takes a toll, financial toll. It takes a toll on your sort of focus when you have to hammer your head in so many different areas. So Rast is an example where hopefully things will ease up, but I think intervention like this is also a double-edged sword. I really
Yeah.
believe that it's a good thing, and we need further interventions like this, and stacking up of different models, stacking up of different sort of areas together, so that then entrepreneurs and fintechs like the
Yep.
the 6 7 here, they can then focus on acquiring the customer, building the tech, creating a value proposition, and driving the hell out of scale.
Yeah.
इनको तो स्केल अचीव करने की अभी नौबत ही नहीं आती है, वो पहले ही ना कुछ टक्कर जो है वो लग जाती है कहीं पे, just
बिल्कुल
stumble
बिल्कुल।
on some issue.
Yeah.
आई थिंक
Yeah.
रेहान ने बहुत जबरदस्त आर्टिकुलेट किया है। मैं इसकी एक आपको मिसाल बताता हूँ।
जी जी।
फ्रॉम डे वन कीनू का फोकस ये था कि, और आज भी यही है, हर विजन हैजंट चेंज, कुछ ऑल्टर नहीं किया हमने। वो ये था, देखें, एटीएम से जो पैसे निकलते हैं ना, और जो पॉस
बिल्कुल।
मशीन पर कार्ड स्वाइप होता है, इस गैप को हमने ब्रिज करना है। दैट इज वाई कीनू एग्जिस्ट। ओके,
सही।
अब चाहे वो
राइट।
जिस तरीके से भी हो, वी हैव टू ले डाउन आवर ओन पॉस नेटवर्क, वी हैव टू हैव अ पेमेंट गेटवे। बाय द वे, निफ्ट और ऐप से 4 साल पहले हमने ये काम शुरू कर दिया था, और
बिल्कुल।
हम थक गए, यकीन करें। हमें बहुत हिम्मत है, हमने पॉस का बहुत बड़ा नेटवर्क ले डाउन किया, इस काम से हम थक गए। One bank used to take 1 year to sign up, integrate, and understand that we are not their competition. We are out there to
Yeah.
facilitate, right?
बिल्कुल।
लास्ट बात ये बता रहा हूँ कि आज जो गैप है, दैट इज 340 बिलियन वर्थ की, एज पर लास्ट स्टेट बैंक नंबर्स। अब ये नंबर बहुत चेंज हुए होंगे, ये 400 क्रॉस कर चुका है, बट 340 बिलियन एज ऑफ लास्ट रिपोर्ट was performed through POS, whereas ATM से पैसे निकले 6400 बिलियन, राइट? ये
ओके।
गैप मैं
या।
आपको बता रहा हूँ, ये परसेंटेज जो है ना, जब मैं बैंक में था, फैसल बैंक में, आज से कोई 10 साल पहले, यही परसेंटेज थी। सो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज, एज रेहान सेड, मुझे नहीं अंदाजा था कि ये वाकई होने वाला था, CIO एक होगा पाकिस्तान का। मैंने ये बात सुनी थी और शायद मुझे अफवाह लगी थी, बट
जी
यही
जी।
जरूरत है वक्त की। एक पता हो हम लड़ किससे रहे हैं, व्हाट इज कैश।
बिल्कुल।
अगर मेरे पास आज कैश आता है और मेरे पास डिजिटल डिजिटल इंस्ट्रूमेंट की सेटलमेंट एक दिन बाद होती है, तो किसी सूरत कैश कभी डिजिटल के बराबर नहीं होगा। हेंस जो काम रास्त से होगा ना,
बिल्कुल।
इट हैज टू बी बैक्ड अप बाय एन इंटरवेंशन बाय द गवर्नमेंट, के कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड को गवर्नमेंट बेयर करे। दुनिया के किसी
बिल्कुल।
मुल्क
बिल्कुल।
में इतना हाई डिस्काउंट रेट नहीं एग्जिस्ट करता जितना हमारे मुल्क में। यानी कि 2 दिन
यस।
के फंड की कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड जो है ना, वो किसी छोटी
बिल्कुल।
कंपनी को बड़ा नहीं होने देगी। मैं तो
या।
कीनो इज अ वेरी लकी कंपनी टू बी थ्राइविंग राइट नाउ। मेरे साथ की 10 कंपनियां बंद हो चुकी हैं।
जी
सो
जी।
एज रेहान ने जो बात की, आई थिंक मैं टोटली एग्री करता हूँ इस बात से।
So basically, like you guys are saying, there's no perfect intervention ever. और इस intervention के बाद और भी multiple interventions are needed, right? So Ali Saab, I think you're back online. Your camera was much clearer. I'm hoping the voice is also. I don't. Okay.
करीम भाई,
Yeah.
पेप्रो को भी आप ही जरा, पेप्रो की जगह आप जवाब दें, आपको पता है व्हाट दे डू।
Acha, yes, Noreen. Noreen, please, you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think everyone is making very valid points till Ali is able to join again. देखिए एक जो चीज है ना जो, and I think you guys are in a better position being payment players. We're not a payment player. We just understand we're using your railroads to build upon. But जो एक जो चीज जो मेरी थोड़ी बहुत नॉलेज में जो मुझे समझ आती है, and I'm not going to talk from the perspective of the entire economy, because we understand that how cash is how expensive cash is for the overall economy. But अगर आप एक आम पाकिस्तानी का सोचें, an average individual in Pakistan, from their perspective, digital is still more expensive than cash, which is one of the reasons why you don't see that adoption happening towards digital. And I think
Right.
why I keep on referring to RAS is because from what I do understand about the platform is that it will really encourage bringing that cost down. You saw with IBFT during COVID, how that really spurred transactions. So I think, these railroads that are being built, the first step. What we ultimately do with that railroad is going to be in our
Yeah.
hands. Definitely, there will need to be a push from the regulator to sort things out. But how we build those use cases will ultimately be in our hands. For example, the reason why I keep on referring to India is because we have a precedent here that's next to us with a market
Yes.
which has been very similar to us, with, in terms of the culture and the kind of mindset that they have. So, Abhi, I think Rehan mentioned about, the partnership between Geo and WhatsApp. That's a kind of, groundbreaking impacts, the platform like DAS can actually bring in. And I
Yeah.
think what it's ultimately what we really need to start thinking about, this interconnectivity which is needed. There are going to be multiple players that are going to be involved here. It's not only going to bring in digital connectivity, but also, digital interactivity, which is, a very, very important pillar of this ecosystem. And I think for the longest time, even now, I think everyone, like particularly the incumbents, you talk about the banks, you talk about the telcos, everyone is really possessive about their customers. I think now is the time that you really realize that, if you really want this ecosystem to grow, we need to do it together. Otherwise, वो कहते हैं ना, दो ईंटों की मछते मिला के हम सारे जो बैठ जाएंगे, कुछ काम नहीं होने वाला. We're going to continue like this for the next 10 years also. But I think this is a time where we need to realize that for the overall financial inclusion space, we really need to join hands and go about this together.
Right, right. So,
And I'll add to
yes.
that. I think if you look at PSD2 or open banking kind of directives, Europe के अंदर और UK में जो हैं, so I think वहाँ पे भी market, a lot depends on the market structure. And I think Noreen highlighted a very good point, that does the players believe in interoperability, and do they believe that market will open up if there is true interoperability, or do they believe that they can actually just be profitable in the segment, in the customer, in the value chain that they basically have, and they're focused on market share rather than market size. And of course, I think every market has its growth, and there's an S curve, and it would stop. It require a new combination, a new innovation to unlock the next X curve, etc. It definitely seems, and we do hope that RAS would provide or unlock that potential for another S curve. Lekin expecting, and I think this is what Saad was also referring to, expecting that RAS alone or intervention like this alone will now take it to 90%. No, I think it will take us maybe a bump of another 15-20%. Then you need another one. And that's how you innovate, and that's how you take the next model as well. And I think if we start to see that happening, मेरा अपना belief है कि then international investors will also start pouring in, because they will figure out that this market is unlocking its potential and the regulator is partnering, and hence all you need is investment. मैं हमें पाकिस्तानी investors भी इसके अंदर और ज़्यादा jump in कर जाएंगे. तो इस वक्त बाकी different आपको industries के अंदर investment करते हुए नजर आते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
गाड़ी इस वक्त इतनी बिक रही हैं, there's a lot of investment pouring in there. So hopefully, some of those investors may also sort of shift here. I think it's all about getting together and creating a vision. मैं कहूँ 20 साल का vision के बजाय अगले 4 साल का 3 साल का vision, और उसके अंदर what needs to be done, and if we hammer it out, I think investors will definitely come.
So
यार
Rehan
ये रेहान साहब ने जो एक बात बोली है ना, आई थिंक सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात शायद इस पूरी कन्वर्सेशन की यही होगी, वो है कि लोकल, आप मुझे बताएं ना, इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टर को भी छोड़ दें, लोकल इन्वेस्टर ने कितना इन्वेस्ट कर दिया यार, मुझे ये बताएं. बात हो रही है $5,000 की का इनाम जीत लिया किसी कंपनी ने, और $10,000 की सीड फंडिंग. $10,000 की सीड फंडिंग, कम ऑन गाइस, बिजली का बिल देखें जरा अपने मुल्क का, ठीक है. तो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि आप, गवर्नमेंट का काम होता है ये कि वो लोकल लोगों को पहले तो मोटिवेट करते हैं. अच्छा, कोई इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टर आता है ना, पहला सवाल ये पूछता है, यहाँ बहुत सारे लोग बैठे हैं, इन्होंने मल्टीपल से बात की होगी, अच्छा तो स्पॉन्सर निकलना क्यों चाह रहा है पुराना वाला? बेसिक क्वेश्चन. कंट्री रिस्क तो अपनी जगह है ना, वो कहता है लोकल पार्टनर क्या स्टेक है, व्हाट्स द स्किन इन द गेम, राइट? सो सबसे बेसिक बात ही यही है जो आई थिंक इन्होंने कर दी है, जो आई थिंक.
बिल्कुल. तो इसमें मैं एक चीज कहना चाहूंगा, वर्किंग एज अ फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर, बहुत सी कॉर्पोरेट्स वाले से बात होती है, रिसेंटली भी हुई थी लोकल कॉर्पोरेट. So basically they all want to get into the fintech game because they hear about it, right? या फिर उनके जो executives बैठे होते हैं, they understand कि उन्हें चाहिए, but they are more interested के okay, so the mode of investment or the expectation from investment is very unclear. या तो वो, it doesn't make sense for a company that is already running, and on the other end, the flip side of that, for the international investors, so there's a lot of uncertainty on the expected returns from this country because of all the the, like you're saying, who do we know, where, what is the real challenge that we're fighting, right? So if maybe through this forum that we're all talking on, maybe we can come up with a white paper altogether that really explains how what is the potential over here in the market to everyone, not just the international investors, but the local ones. Because you're right, we have that country risk, which is very, very different to other countries. We have been under, I would say, more strict regulations and even transferring funds from in and out of the country, which has even gotten a little more difficult over the last year. So uh, when we talk about local investors, right? Um, do you think local business, because one of the things that Pakistan doesn't have compared to other countries, even India, is that we don't have active investment funds which are investing in potential growth areas. So and the reason for that are a million, or quite a lot. A lot of them do come in, but they won't invest, and that's another question. But so my question over there is doesn't that bring an even a bigger opportunity for an international investor to come in? So Noreen, we're not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry, Noreen. I don't think you're not coming across very clear. And, I think the
So I'll try
internet is
to answer some of that,
Yes, please.
which is, you see, and again, these guys have more experience than me raising funding, and I've only seen it from outside. So, investors come in consortium. They rely on the fact that who else has invested, et cetera, et cetera. And again, there are many categories. Some would invest early stage, and some would invest in later, et cetera, et cetera. So investors की अपनी भी categories हैं, and internationally, so it's a much more disciplined, field in a way. So I think Pakistan may, what Saad has, also talked about. I think we need some funds that leapfrog. Karandaz, for example, not in fintech, but we have some investments we have done in SME. And when we evaluated those SMEs, we figured out that the investors that they were talking to, they were very hawkish. I think they wanted to, rather than grow, they wanted to take management control. They wanted to milk the company. I think वो भी Pakistani investors का by and large, I'm not saying specifically, but by and large वो ये है कि वो return जो है ना उसमें risk के लिए कि बहुत ज़्यादा appetite नहीं है. So some of the investment that Karandaz has done for the SMEs, from our CIC portfolio, some of the other investors were actually more hawkish, and they leave the space. So SMEs ke andar, and I think some of these fintechs are also part of that, they have a big issue accessing capital, private capital. Even agar hain bhi, so they're quite hawkish. They do not understand the business model. They want to maybe monetize too early, and want the founder to milk too early for them so that they can get their returns early on. Jabke this requires a long play, and I think that's why you need an investor who's like-minded, who has done such investments in other areas. So for example, I think Telenor Bank in the investment and financial key, because Ant Financial understands this business day in and day out, and they know it's a long term. It is a long-term investment. So they may be worried about how will they recoup their investment and take money out. And maybe they have shitload of money, but also they're in for long term. It's also about mindset. And it has to align with the founder.
Exactly. And moving on from that. Yes, Noreen, you wanted to say something? We're still not clear. Sorry, Noreen, we're not able to hear you.
Still can't
Noreen,
hear.
log in from your mobile phone. Noreen, log in from your mobile phone. I think mobile connection will be better.
Right.
Rizwan, is
Yes.
one thing I can add on this actually. So, I mean, we other than my role as the CEO or co-founder of a company, a few months back we started a Fintech Association. It's called Pakistan Fintech Association,
Yes.
and one of the areas, focus areas in that was also to study what are the needs of the members, the fintechs, because we have a wide spectrum of organizations, very small and up startups, and very established companies like Saad's company. So
Hmm.
we have got this whole range of companies, and we saw that there are different type of challenges. We when we try to call upon the VCs and investment houses, there are a lot of VCs and investment houses now in Pakistan, generally investing in startups, not particularly in fintech, but open obviously to invest in fintech as well.
Yeah.
Even the largest startups, there are some which are in the, say, ride hailing business. You will see a lot of them pivoting towards including financial services.
Yes.
There was a lot of hype about Kareem entering into Kareem Pay.
Yes.
There are other, I am privy of, maybe confidential right now, but the point is that there is appetite from VCs and investment houses into fintech play, and
Definitely.
the I think the important point is that at what point a fintech is going and reaching out for investment, guiding and mentoring them. That is it like you're giving a large chunk of your company just for the initial investment in Series A or pre-Series A even. So those points, we have seen that there's a lot of knowledge gap and mentoring required in that area, and that's one of
Exactly.
the focus area where we are working on in at the association level, that we create advisory services where those fintechs can learn from how what kind of questions they need to
Yeah.
understand and take care of where raising investments.
Yes, yes. And I think adding from that, another intervention that I would like to see is, when I go to the Board of Investment website, it shows me food, like seven different kind of food and agriculture businesses as potential growth investments, and that is what they're presenting to the world outside as well. I would love to see fintech and other kind of businesses as high growth potential areas that the Board of Investment of Pakistan is selling to the world as well. Because then again, there's a huge gap. If someone goes directly to the Board of Investment, which is the true existence of Board of Investment, is to market the opportunities of Pakistan. And I think they look at the history and they talk about fast, growing areas, but they do not talk about the future potential of all these areas like fintech. I think Mr. Ali, we can try taking some comments from you again. Okay. I think his internet is so. All right. Okay. So if I kind of summarize, we are growing as a market in fintech, the Pakistan market of fintech. There are challenges, there are opportunities. We are moving towards a tipping point where all of it should be, you know, changing for the better. We will see a lot more companies come in and the existing companies grow. And Rust is an intervention, but many other are needed. So based on that, and we're seeing investments coming in, from existing players like Kareem. China Union has invested a lot into Pakistan, coming in different ways, and financial has come in. So if I can just have closing comments from everyone. Noreen, you were already, I think, saying something. So maybe if you can give your comments and also your closing remarks, please.
I completely agree with what Rehan and Naseem was also mentioning. I think we definitely have a way to start in Pakistan.
Okay,
And I would like to
Noreen, apologies again. We cannot hear you.
any better with
Um, I'm sorry, we're not able to hear at all. Let No. Let me maybe go to everyone for the closing comments and maybe come back to you towards the end if you can figure out your internet, because we're not able to hear you at all. Okay. So, Mr. Saad, can I have the closing remarks from you?
Yeah. So I would just skim through the timeline, and those will be my closing remarks. 2010,
Yep.
I thought Pakistan is at a point of no recovery, and we will never have a digital ride
Yep.
on a digital wave. That changed very quickly. I myself got motivated, founded a company, got investors. Everything that the risk that was highlighted that went right in my. So I was very lucky, I would rather say. But payment gateways
Mm-hmm.
also came into the market. The demand side kind of went the other way. The supply side kind of just kicked off. So
Yep.
that gives us an idea that you can't stop you can stop the march of an army, but not the idea whose time has come. So
Yeah.
I think we are right now sitting at the tipping point of things.
Mm-hmm.
One trigger, and I'm not really sure. Luckily, Kareem Bhai and myself are office bearers of Pakistan Fintech Association. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great opportunity. We can develop a white paper. We have written a few things in this regard, and talk. I mean, taking lead from your idea, we can really submit that white paper at all forums. Send it to Karandaz as well. Send it to you guys, and then let's
Yep.
take it forward through our regulatory liaison committee to the government. So that
Yep.
tipping point could be one or three or four, whatever, I don't know. That tipping point will take us to the level of some of the fastest growing digital economies in the world next 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
The few things that are left, and I don't believe that you really need a lot of financial literacy. When you give
Mm-hmm.
the right kind of incentives, when you give the
Yep.
right kind of motivation, and you induce the right amount of stick, I
Yeah. Yeah.
believe people do things their own way. I have experienced this. When we give
Yep.
out
Agree.
discounts as much as 50%, people learn
Mm.
to download the app, they forget all the issues, they activate
Yeah.
everything themselves. You don't receive any calls
Bilkul.
at your call center. So I think
Yeah.
these three things are the key. And I believe we have a very bright future ahead. We just
Mm-hmm.
need right people at the top to guide this country and to stay. I mean, for example, if I were made in charge, I would make Rehan Akhtar and Karim Jindani the head of certain areas in the government, and I would give them a task. 2 years, guys, do it, and that's it. And in 2 years, it's going to happen. It never takes a very long time. So some sane person at the top is the key to all this.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So I've just got a message on Marine's closing comments. I'll just read that out before moving to the other members. So Marine is saying we need to scale and we need more precedents of success for eyeballs to roll from the international investment space. We need more companies to go beyond early stage, for which we need more patient capital locally. So, Mr. Rehan, can we have your closing remarks, please?
Yeah, so thank you, Prime Minister Saad Niazi, for appointing.
We can call him the
Maybe
Prime
in
Minister of
future,
FinTech.
if you're running for for office. So yeah, no, I think things are shaping up. I really like motto of Gates Foundation. They like to call themselves impatient optimists. So I think we need to be the impatient optimist and trailblazers, and like some people here, and even otherwise, they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job creating this sort of market. It's a very opaque, a very sort of mushy kind of a market where you have to really dissect use case by use case, and so it's all about laying the groundwork. I think the key question
Yep.
is, and I'll echo what Saad said, that we have the tipping point. I think the question is that what do we do with the tipping point? I also agree that it's not about financial literacy.
Yeah.
People figure out to optimize, and use the solutions to their benefit. We're a very smart nation that way. So we know how to utilize this solution. And there's a reason why people avoid using digital financial services. And we have talked about it because cash is cheaper. And why won't you optimize your
Mhm.
financials? So I think on that note, I'm very hopeful that we are reaching that tipping point. We need more of this dialogue. We need more of this discussion. We need
Yes.
right players in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So private sector जितने भी discussion कर ले, it's not good enough. We need to rope in the right government
Yeah.
forum and the right government quarters as well to partner in this discussion. I think uski a great example is what Ministry of Commerce has done on e-commerce. I
Yeah.
think it was a very effective forum that they created, and the private sector, with collaboration with government, has been able to solve a lot of issues. Still, many to be
Yeah.
solved. So I think it requires that partnership.
Yeah. And Mr. Kareem, if you can also give your closing remarks. And,
Sure.
the white paper that Saad was also talking about, I definitely think that at least with all the stakeholders involved in it, coming up with a structure, going to the right people just might provide some of what is needed. So, yes, Mr. Kareem, can we please have your closing remarks as well?
Sure. Yeah. I think we have covered a lot of ground today, and I mean, always an optimist.
Yes.
One of the reasons I've stuck with this country, and despite the thick and thin, you work out, and
Yeah.
I see a lot of opportunity, and when you have got a lot of ground here, a lot of things which are not right, and you always find opportunity to do a
Hmm.
lot of things. It's just the thing that we need to focus on is policy level interventions.
Yeah.
uh, Luckily, in past few years working with government institutions and with regulators, what I've it's my personal experience that uh, we have like the right policy interventions. If they are articulated well and they are presented to the right quarters, things move on. I mean, one of the examples, probably Saad is too humble and he doesn't disclose too much. But State Bank took recently, like at the start of COVID, some initiatives which were coming out from his personal experience and his experience running a point of sale network in the market.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
those have now triggered a lot of banks to, invest into. We are seeing a lot of investment coming in from abroad into point of sale networks because State Bank
Right.
has done some policy measures around the merchant discount rate. So
Yes.
that's a very good example of something which it might have took few years of persuasion with the regulator, but eventually that is what is a trigger point which catalyzes the whole market. So we need
Hmm.
lots of things like this. Recently, all of us are aware about the Roshan digital account. The moment State Bank went ahead with it and did that, uh, on the face of it, Roshan digital account is maybe not a very, you can say, a very big success. Financially,
Yeah.
there could be like much more investment could have been raised. But what it has triggered a debate is that, if someone sitting outside Pakistan can digitally open an account, why can't someone sitting within Pakistan? And State Bank is already now working on that.
Hmm.
So that's the network effect or catalytic effect which we need to focus on. That one good policy measure, one good policy intervention will lead to another. So that is something we should all push the government and regulators towards.
Right. Yeah. Completely agreed. So I think again, I think we have covered a lot of ground, like you're just saying, and inshallah, we're gonna see that we can um, see the global investors look at us the way we're describing. Hopefully they'll get to see the stock, I'm guessing, if we can. This is also sort of a white paper that we've come up with in a verbal format, recorded on video. And if I would request CxO Global Forum and your association of fintech to basically work on this, and me as someone who works with you know who works in the investment space, if I'm always needed anywhere, in terms of working on these grounds to make this information much more clear for the rest of the world. So I think hopefully we can all do that. Thank you everyone for joining in today, and I hope we will continue this kind of dialogue with CXO Global Forum and I would love to hear more about everything that is happening in the market through CxO Global Forum and other ways as well. So thank you everyone for joining, and thumbs up for a very bright future for fintech in Pakistan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, ji. Hafiz.
Thanks.
Hafiz.